Well, I guess recess is over. Class is in session. I want to say welcome to Travis and to Cindy, or maybe you're welcoming me because we're in your space. We're at Prairie Crossroads School. I have my fidget spinner here, so that's needed. Thank you. We are here because, well, you two are a part of us at Westside, and for the last 2 years, this has been a huge part of your story, getting Prairie Crossroads School up and going. And who doesn't want to start a school during a pandemic for 2 years? Sounds like kind of that story of we bought a zoo, we started a school. I think that applies. So just this huge, crazy thought. So my first question to you is probably to you, Travis, is why? Why? What prompted the vision or crafted this into this place we are today?
Yeah, for us, really, the journeys started probably 6-7 years ago. Maybe that's 7 years, 8 years ago. I'm losing track of how old my kids are. Yeah, when my daughter first went to kindergarten, we had this vision of, or this thought maybe that we'd love to have, a faith-based school, but there was nothing, and we kind of at that time said it's way bigger than us. We've got a special needs son that's a toddler. We've got another toddler and another kid on the way, and it's just too big for us. So then off she went to school to Maple Leaf, as did our next 3 sons. And then as our last was entering kindergarten, we kind of had this thought again that we'd really love a faith-based option in town, and just kind of felt that on our hearts, and said, again, had this feeling that this is just way bigger than us, and we're not educators, and we have no idea what we're doing. So we kind of said, we had what we called the Gideon moments, right? We kind of told God, or asked God, if this is what you want us to do, right, show us a sign, right? So we said, show us that there's interest beyond ourselves. So we held a small meeting, just invited a few people, and they invited a few people, and within the first week we had 60, 70 families that kind of emailed saying, hey, we have interest, or would like to know more as you develop. So we said, okay, well, there's more interest than just beyond us, but right, you kept the fleece dry and the ground was wet. Now, how about you make the the fleece wet and the ground dry, right? We need another sign. We're not educators. We don't know what we're doing. We're both administrators, management, my wife and I. So bring alongside some teachers, right? That would raise up some teachers that will help us with this. And so, in addition to Cindy, who came along a little while later, there were 3 educators that came alongside and said, we'd like to help with this. And so at that point, it was kind of, okay, showing us loud and clear that this is the direction you want us to go. So we dove in. Before explaining the motivation why, I always find it good to clarify why not, right? What was not our motivation, right? And so our motivation wasn't based on a bad experience at public school. We have a special needs son who had an immense amount of support in the public school system, right? And we were extremely blessed and grateful for all the support we received and the teachers we had. So it was not at all based out of bad experience, right? We were grateful for the experience we had. It also wasn't based out of a need for some elitist school, because that was the exact opposite of what we really wanted. It was more based out of seeing that our kids spend nearly half their waking hours in school, and certainly all their prime hours. And then alongside that, seeing an opportunity to build into them in a way that public schools couldn't, and that would be in that spiritual aspect. And so it wasn't just in memory work or in Bible stories or in theological concepts. It was also teaching them how to be the hands and feet of Christ through service opportunities, which now with COVID gone, we have a little more flexibility to do that. So that was really the motivation, right? And it wasn't to relieve us as parents of that responsibility, but it was more to build alongside what parents were already doing. So that was motivation 1, and probably the biggest motivation. The second motivation was a smaller family-like atmosphere and culture, right? And the ability to have all of our kids in the same school, which when we started the school, our kids were in different schools just because of the elementary and middle years and eventually high school. So We love the idea of being able to have that family-like atmosphere and have all of our children in the same school. So those were, among the many others, those were the two primary motivators. So yeah, that's why.
That was a great recruiting speech. That was amazing. What grades are here?
K to 8.
K to 8?
Mm-hmm.
So this is year 2.
Year 2.
Can't imagine the learning curve of starting and launching something like this. So if I could ask you, Cindy, what's the strength of this school, or how's God been moving in this place, through this place?
Yeah, like starting a school in COVID is definitely not for the faint of heart. But you know what? We've seen God at work in many amazing ways. He has provided this building, for example. And the fact that there was not programming allowed us to figure ourselves out. So there was that. And then even financially through various grants with
Right.
COVID, then financially that was also a plus. Also, in some ways, in a weird kind of way, being pulled back with time, self-isolation, if you want to call it, allowed us, and not having programming outside, like extracurricular, allowed time for us to focus on the school year 1. So actually, those were some things that actually were blessings in COVID, which one would not expect, but that's what happened, you know. So that was really neat. I think that one of the things that impresses me the most is the people that come here and the diversity of backgrounds that they come with. So I was most struck when we had our Meet the Teacher event at Stanley Park. So we had like just a gathering together. And here you could see that there was families that came from very traditional viewpoints of how they express themselves, and very liberal, one might say, like various ways of expressing themselves. And all of these people coming together with one purpose, and that is that they all desire to be a part of a community, a faith-based community, and have their kids belong to this. So we have people as far-reaching as Roland and Miami and Darlingford and Winkler, and so having 20 different churches represented here with our 36 families is quite something. And so it's really neat to see about what unites us, not what divides us. And I think that amongst COVID, there's various approaches, and so that is represented here, but that's not what defines us. And so I think God is at work in that. Yeah. And like Travis mentioned, is bringing people together, like the staff, and just how the timing of people that he had laid on something on their heart about the school maybe years ago, and now it came together. So I think seeing God at work in that is phenomenal. I think the other thing is about spiritual formation of children. When we do chapel and when we hear children being able to enter into the presence of God and listening to their wonders and listening to their listening prayers, you know, it is really moving, and I feel like Jesus' call to be like children, and I think that's just a beautiful setting. And I think the last thing, and I mentioned this even in my elder sharing, about bringing people into nature, bringing the kids into nature. And so our nature program is a part of our regular programming. And so we get to see God at work in nature, and then there's school in God's classroom, and being able to call it that.
Right.
Right. We get to call this God's classroom, and without reservation. And so I think those are things that we see God at work, and we see his beauty unfold in this place.
Right. Well, we remember, or we filmed a year ago in your yurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, from their Mongolian yurt.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's just an incredible space. And like you've been on staff at Westside, like we go back. We've served on that team, and your heart for education and for how people learn has been front and center and has led you here to implement and apply those thoughts and those beliefs that you have. So, and your heart for your family and other people's families and kids and formation is just so clear as you articulate the vision. So I just want to thank both of you. How can we pray for you? Just want to end with that. How can we pray for you? If you could each give us one prayer.
Sure. Why don't I go with I think every prayer should have praise as well, right? So why don't I speak to praise, and then Cindy can speak to prayer. And I'm going to maybe speak on two. I'm not. You limit me to one. I'm going to.
We'll edit out one maybe if it's too long.
But our first praise item is our first 2 years as a school is non-funded. There's no government funding. Once we get to year 3, we'll get 50% of what the public schools receive. But the Lord has provided, right? We have no funding from the government outside of a few COVID grants, and we know that we're good for the rest of the year, and we were good all of last year. So the Lord's provision is such an amazing blessing to us, right? And the ways that we've seen that come is. Right, I've seen miracles many times over with the ways that He's provided. So that's a huge praise item. And the second praise item, and this is probably everybody's has this as a praise item, but as of next Tuesday, we have the opportunity to operate in a non-restrictive manner,
right?
For the first time in our history as a school. So we get to operate as a school in a normal way, which we haven't had. So that's a huge praise item as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a prayer request, I guess, would be wisdom, because there's lots of decisions in starting a school with regards to protocol and policy making and finances and decisions that are made about programming and those sorts of things. And because the decisions that we make now set the trajectory for the future. And so it's really important that we seek God for wisdom, and that He grants us that, and that we know what His voice is in all of this.
Absolutely. Well, we'll join you in prayer for
Thank
all
you.
that. Thank you, and thanks for a great fish fry fundraiser last week. The fish was delicious, and thanks for EMMC for hosting us in this space and this school. Thanks. That's your Westside story for this week.